Hi everyone, I'm May, and I'd like to welcome you back to my channel, Shady May's Storytime. Here I'll tell you some urban legends and a little about where they come from and or where they started. Just a reminder, these are stories, so I will be providing references in the video description. That way, if you'd like to investigate further on your own, you are welcome to. Now that introductions are over, let's get started, shall we? Side note, I want to apologize beforehand for any mispronunciations because this is a foreign story. So I will do my very best. And also, if small children are watching, please be advised that this is a little bit more gruesome than I originally thought it was. So, yeah, let's get started. So, this is about the women in black of Wat Samian Nari. A little history to begin our story. So, this is a legend out of Bangkok, Thailand. It's actually in one of the 50 districts called Tatutuk, to be exact. It used to be a part of Bang Ken district. I'm sorry. That is until it separated and became its own district in 1989. Yay. Another fairly new one. This district was named for two of the country two sorry two of the country's largest landmarks. One of them is the Tatutuk Park, which is also one of the country's oldest public parks, and the Tatutuk Weekend Market, which is one of the world's largest strip markets. So that's pretty cool. Established in 1857, Wat Nari was also known as Wat Kai Ray. I'm sorry, I will be reading a little bit because, again, a foreign story, and I just want to make sure I get some of these words right as best as possible. But yeah, so Wat Nari is a civilian temple in a little subdivision of Bangkok called Lat Yao. It sits on a little more than 7 acres of land. It is where the principal Buddha image is enshrined, and it also houses two famous statues of the Hindu religion. It is the gods Shiva and Vishnu. In 1877, a lady named Samian she worked as a clerk of the royal treasury under King Brahma V's rule. But she restored the temple, and after it was finished, in honor of her, they renamed the temple to Wat Samian Nari. In 1988, the temple was chosen by the Department of Religious Affairs as a good development example monastery of Bangkok. That's pretty cool. So, now on to the story that we have all come to hear. So, this story is about two sisters that were walking along the train tracks at night, I'm going to assume, because this is where the hauntings begin, is at night. But they were walking the tracks at night, and right in front of this temple is when this horrible accident occurred, supposedly. And anyway, the sisters, I'm not sure exactly what happened, if they tripped or if they were trying to help each other or what happened, what have you. But somehow it happened. So the train hit them, ran them over. The sisters were cut in half. Now they are destined to roam these tracks in their afterlife. Also, I want to say that when I come to the stories, I did shorten names just because, again, They're four names. I really don't want to mean any disrespect or to, butcher their names horribly. So, the stories that started floating around came in the early 2000s. This accident had happened in the 1990s. There was no pinpoint on it. So these sisters, Chuli and Suli Dipsuksuri, I'm sorry. We will call them Chuli and Suli. But they were hit by the train, horrible accident, died. So now this first story is about a man named Noom. He is a cab driver, but at this time, I don't think he was working. He was at a party. He was coming home. It's around 3 a.m. He's going down this road and he sees these sisters. Well, these two beautiful women is what he says. He was interviewed by Shock FM in 2004. He gave his story on air. Okay, nobody really believed him, but we're going to go over it. So these two women get into his car. He picks them up, and they ask to go to Wat Samian, Nari. And he's like, okay. So he takes them there. And he's trying to talk to them, the whole time on the ride there, but they're not really responding in any way. They're just kind of, they seem kind of gloomy, kind of sad. And he's like trying his best, but they're just, no conversation was wanted. So he quit trying. Anyway, they get to the temple and he's like, where should I park? But when he looks at the girls, no one's in the car with him. They're gone. And he's freaking out now. He's a little panicked, confused, gets out of his car, looking around, and really doesn't see anything for a minute. And then he sees something kind of off to the side. He's like, what is this? So he walks a little further, and as he focuses in on them, he realizes it's these women. But it's not just that. There's something about them. They look weird. So he gets a little closer, and he realizes it's just the top half of these women that he's seeing. And they're pulling each other, pulling themselves along the track. And it's just the top half. They're following, their entrails are behind them. And it's just really nasty. He was horrified. So he jumps back in his car. He takes off, doesn't look back. He quits his job and never goes back to that district again. Never back to that area. He ended up developing a heart condition after that. So he tries to tell people about it. Nobody believes him. They're like, yeah, whatever, you were drunk, right? So, end of story. Don't hear anything really about it for a little while later. A few years later, this guy named Jarawat, again, I am sorry. He's another cab driver. He had a near-death experience after encountering these sisters as well. He told Channel 7's Horror Hour. That's kind of cool. I'm kind of interested in that now. Maybe I want to watch. So he tells them he picks up these two women clad in black, okay? And they get in, they ask to be taken to Wat Samian Nari. Again, the same as Noom, he does not get a lot of conversation out of these women. They're not really talking to each other. They just really seem really sad, just kind of sit there and gloomy, So he's like, oh, they're just maybe a friend or a relative died. So he takes them up there. As he pulls in, he turns around to collect his fare. And again, the women are not there. Now, I think this man has already heard this story because he started to panic immediately. He was like, absolutely not. He put his key back in the ignition, never left his car. He was like, no way. And he starts looking around and he sees these women in front of his car by the tracks. Okay. But there's something odd about these women that really scare him. As he's looking at them, they have blood coming out of their foreheads, running down their faces. Horrifying. So he decides he is out of there. So he tries to start his car. He starts to go. And as soon as he gets on the tracks, his car stalls and stops, dies right there. And he's like, oh my God, what am I going to do now? Well, now he's so frightened. He really doesn't know what to do. He's trying to start his car. It's not starting. And he's looking around, trying to figure out what is happening. And then all of a sudden, he hears a big thwack on the top of his car. I'm sorry, I spit everywhere. So here's this big thwack on the top of his car, and he freaks out because he's like, oh my God, it's the railroad crossing gate. I really don't want to die here. Please just let something happen. So he tries one more time to start his car. Success. He drives off, gets out of there, quits his job that very same night, puts his keys away, is never a cab driver again, never goes back to that area. He never even drives a car again. He was like, absolutely not. And after that, I probably don't blame him. I would probably act the same way. Either way, it was a pretty wild story. And supposedly he ended up getting some heart problems too, which is kind of sad. So I really feel for him. Yeah, so there's been a lot of searches and whatever. A lot of people gone through some databases and whatever. They've never heard or found anything, concrete evidence or, nothing like that to pull up about these two women. The men whose stories I told were actually from their own mouths. These are transcripts and stuff that I had found just looking it up. You're more than welcome to look, I left in my references. But other than that, I mean, they said there has been searches, but again, nothing before 1997 was pulled. Julie and Sully died sometime in 1990s. There was not a pinpoint one, but they wouldn't pull anything earlier than 1997. Still a mystery, so I guess we'll see what happens. Anyway, that concludes my story. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found me at least a little bit interesting. You can please like and subscribe to my channel, and maybe comment if you'd like to. Otherwise, hopefully I'll see you next week. The end.